Hi, my name is Justin, and I love Metroid. The atmosphere, the quiet sense of non-linear exploration, the feeling of power you get by the end. Actually, you know what? I have nothing to be ashamed of. I'm proud of my obsession because it's a genre that doesn't get enough love. That's why I'm here, to shed some light on the best games that are like Metroid, but aren't Metroid. Clearly, a lot of fans feel just like me. That's why there's been so many fan attempts at new games, or just full studio releases that fit into the Metroidvania genre, otherwise known as games that take elements from the Metroid and Castlevania games in order to craft their own gameplay experience. Unfortunately, in my attempts to find games that scratch the Metroid itch, there's also a seemingly endless slew of games out there labeled Metroidvania that are just either not good or barely fit the genre that is admittedly already not very well defined. And you know me, I love trying to sift through large libraries to find the things I think you should play. But this time, instead of just shoving my opinion down everyone's throats, I gathered some friends together from this Metroid Lovers Anonymous group to compile what we believe is the best list of non-Metroid or Castlevania games that hold the Metroidvania genre marker. Plus, doing it this way means that if the list makes you mad, you can't just yell at me in the comments this time. Take that, trolls. Now that the opening niceties are out of the way, and the people who only care about the games have skipped to this timecode, let's go over the rules for how we narrow down this list. First of all, they must have a mapping system with a focus on non-linearity and hidden power-ups, so as to weed out all the recent randomized roguelikes that claim to evoke classic Metroid gameplay. Secondly, they must have a character progression system that opens up new areas as you go and makes the player feel noticeably stronger by the end. This cuts down on games that are essentially just side-scrolling platformers with cool boss battles. And lastly, they must be side-scrollers, though they can still have 3D rendered graphics on a 2D plane. This is basically because I think of top-down or third-person adventure games with character progression more like Zelda than Metroid. Also, because Metroid Other M sucks and I don't want to entertain the idea of any other games like it.
The baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, baby, baby crying.
Okay, now that we've got all that sexy rules talk out of the way, let's start the list by letting someone else talk. Take it away, Kovic.
Song of the Deep by Insomniac Games. When I heard Insomniac Games was making a Metroidvania underwater game, I knew I'd have to have it, and it did not disappoint. This game offers a sizable map to explore, plenty of upgrades to purchase, hermit crab shops to buy those upgrades, a solid story, and an overall great art style and gameplay. It truly is one of the best atmospheric feelings I have experienced in a Metroidvania game. As with Metroidvania style games, there are plenty of areas you won't be able to access until you upgrade your weapons and even your submarine. One thing that helps are the warps that you can unlock. Once you unlock a warp for an area, you can quickly travel across the map. The game does this in a very smart way, and never did I feel like the backtracking was overwhelming or frustrating, which can be a problem in games of this genre. So let's take a moment to sit back and listen to the atmosphere a bit. And we'll end this with the thought that, of course, it has boss fights. But since I don't want to give away too much of the game, I'll give you a little taste. So if you are someone who enjoys Metroidvania games, I definitely recommend Song of the Deep.
SpiderManShattered Dimensions by Kryptonite Games. I think I've put this game on 2 different lists before, so I'll try to keep it short, but I have an irrational love of this game. But in my defense, it plays so differently than any other Spider-Man game, while also doing a lot of justice to the Metroidvania formula. Instead of running into new interconnected areas, though, you actually travel to different dimensions through portals that shift you into a different playable Spider-Man with a somewhat unique ability set. As you go, you unlock new abilities for all three Spider-Men, and also gain back the specialties from each other, such as Noir's ability to Spidey sense secrets, or 2099's ability to glide. Combine the diverse ability sets of each Spider-Man with the usual upgrade progression in other Metroidvanias that allow access to areas and more combat abilities to take out enemies, and it makes for a really fun experience, despite some weird technical glitches due to it being a handheld port of a licensed property on a budget. It has plenty of upgrades, from health to defense to new attacks, and some really interesting boss battles pulled from Spider-Man lore. I'll admit though, a big part of why this one even made the list was because we didn't get an actual Metroid game on DS, so, you know, it's something. And yes, I know there were multiple Castlevania games that are all better than this, but they're not eligible for this list, so get off my back! Figured I'd just preempt the angry comments about this one, because I can already hear your loud typing over there, Janet! Why not put down your wine glass and do something more useful with your time than belittle me, Janet? Anyway, on to the next game on this list. You're up, Nero.
Dust, an Elysian Tale, was published by Microsoft and, more importantly, developed by Humble Hearts. Fun fact about Humble Hearts is that it only consists of one individual by the name of Dean Dodrill. Those of you with a keen eye will probably find Dean's art style familiar. That's because back in the 90s, Dean lent his artistic talents to Epic Games in order to help animate Jazz Jackrabbit and its sequel, Jazz Jackrabbit 2. This probably goes without saying, but Dust is a beautifully animated game. Particle effects, weather effects, combined with an incredible level of attention to detail, serve to immediately immerse you into the world as soon as you start the game. Dust takes a more up-close and personal approach as far as the whole Metroidvania formula goes. Melee combos will be your bread and butter as far as dispatching enemies and gaining bonus experience. You also have a winged companion by the name of Fidget, who can cast magic to extend your combos as well as tell you when treasures are nearby. You begin the game with no memory of who you are or how you got there, and it's your job to figure all that stuff out, while helping those around you on the way.
Please, help us!
Between its beautiful animations, smooth combat, stellar soundtrack, and top-tier voice acting with the occasional witty, fourth-wall-breaking banter.
Remember what you've learned thus far.
No! Mash the buttons! Do something!
Dust: An Elysian Tale is a title that every Metroidvania fan should have in their library.
Steamworld Dig 2 by Image and Form Games. It's a testament to how great this list is that this game isn't higher, because while the first game in the series was mostly procedurally generated, this follow-up took it to new heights by shifting the same gameplay into a much larger map, with vastly different and beautiful areas to explore in true Metroidvania style. While the base gameplay is still all about digging further down and getting treasure to sell for money to spend on robot upgrades, there's also a lot more character progression in this one, as you get things like a grappling hook, a jetpack, and more that make you feel like a true adventurer flying around reaching all the hidden nooks and crannies of the deep world they've built. There admittedly isn't much in the way of boss battles, as it's much more exploration-based, but there's still some harder combat sections that mix things up, even with the character's limited combat abilities. This game puts a whole new spin on the exploration aspects of Metroidvania games, as a genre however, and that puts it a step above the rest in order to make it on this list. Plus, the loot grind and upgrade system is addictive similar to a game like Destiny, because it encourages you to keep going a little deeper, which is where all the, well, depth of the game is, from optional puzzle rooms that give secret upgrades, to challenge areas where you get the new major upgrades that get you through barriers to the next area. It's a simple yet smart gameplay loop that keeps the game moving quickly despite the focus on backtracking. And there's enough regular warp points to get around the admittedly huge map that it never feels like a chore to get back to town and cash in your treasure. It's a different kind of Metroidvania game, for sure, but it's no less exceptional in its uniqueness. If you want a more traditional style game, though, the Vidiot Gamer has you covered next.
Hollow Knight is a beautifully crafted game by Team Cherry Games. It's set in a microscopic world of insects. From the starting cutscene, we only get a glimpse of what lies before us. You start your journey with nothing but your wits and your nail sword in hand. Like many Metroidvania games, your equipment, skills, and weapons improve as you progress. However, what sets this apart from other Metroidvania-style games is the haunting yet gorgeous art style. It has this hand-drawn look to all the sprite work with fluid animations that feel lovingly crafted. The background and foreground art is amazing as well. It makes you feel like you're part of the world. The various environments have a unique feel to them, from the ghost town of Dirtmouth to the ethereal glow of the Forgotten Roads to the pinkish glow of the Crystal Mines and the lush and vibrant plant life of the Green Path. Exploration is the main focus of this game. The amount of secrets is staggering. It'll have you checking every nook, wall, and floor for anything suspicious. You're always rewarded for your efforts. However, a lot of the time you need to power up in order to solve a maze, or give you the extra boost you need in order to grab those collectibles. Speaking of collectibles, look at these cute worm guys! They're so cute and I want to hug them all and they make such sad sounds. Don't be sad, I love you. Sorry. These grubs are worth collecting because you're rewarded for your efforts with Geo or even a charm. Speaking of charms, each one of these charms can dramatically change the gameplay depending on your combination. Battling monsters is complex yet familiar. It's sort of like many other Metroidvania games, with a splash of Mega Man X, and just a hint of, here's a cliche, Dark Souls. To clarify, the Mega Man X elements are mostly for the bosses, and if you are playing Buster only. And the Dark Souls elements are mostly when you die. When you die, you lose your Geo, souls, and are penalized by being unable to use as much of your soul meter, which is your magic. And like Dark Souls, you can reclaim your Geo and soul meter, but only if you defeat your shadow. Overall, this is a fantastic game, and it's worth playing if you enjoy exploration. There are sights to see, people to meet. This is only the tip of the iceberg of what this game has to offer.
Headlander by Double Fine Studios. While this game is more traditional in its progression and upgrade system, it's anything but traditional in its style. Which is probably to be expected from the crazy minds of Double Fine Studios, the same company that made Psychonauts. You play the titular head, sporting a fantastic pair of sideburns, and you land on the bodies of various different robots that have specific powers to get past different obstacles or locked doors. But there are also moments where you have to hack into specific terminals or get into small areas that require specific bodies. The upgrades aren't all determined by which body you use, however, as the head also has a skill tree for upgrades, as well as specific upgrade terminals that get new abilities, such as a speed booster or reflector for passing certain puzzles when you're just flying around as a head. The game is also unique in its futuristic 70s graphical style and fun sense of humor that just made it stand out in a genre of games that is more wordless and story-light. This is another one that's more exploration and puzzle focused than it is on combat, but there are still a handful of very cool and creative boss battles that combine the puzzle elements with battle tactics. This is a truly unique game that's honestly hard to explain in a brief video segment, but it's more than worth a playthrough just to fly around and pop the heads off random droids just to hear them react. However, if you prefer your quirky and colorful Metroidvanias less robotic, Elite Trainer Hugo has a game you might like instead. Hit it, Hugo!
Guacamelee! Super Turbo Championship Edition!
Let's talk about Guacamelee for a second. Guacamelee is a bright, colourful, Day of the Dead inspired romp through Mexico, featuring skeletons playing guitars, wearing sombreros, and masked luchadors as your main characters. As a Metroidvania, this game definitely stands out for its art style and quirky nature. You play as Juan, and throughout the adventure you gain more abilities in the form of wrestling techniques. These techniques are used in combat and also to explore older and newer areas of the map, to collect goodies and progress with the plot, and also just find secrets in general. The game plays homage to other games in the genre, such as Metroid itself, with many statues resembling Chozos and even the Metroids themselves. The game's art style helps to make it stand out from the crowd of other Metroidvania games, and the art is simply gorgeous to look at. During combat, the game can get a bit too flashy and a little bit distracting, but it still makes you feel like a complete badass while you rip apart enemies just by punching them and throwing them into each other. There's a lot of customization options in this game as well. You could use a variety of costumes, all with different power-ups and buffs to help Juan through his journey. My personal favourite costume is the chicken suit, just throwing that out there. You can also turn into a chicken as well, that's pretty interesting. Unlike most Metroidvanias, this game features cooperative play, which means you and a buddy can go around defeating the hordes of hell together, which adds an amazing amount of replayability. You can destroy the underworld together in this bright, quirky, and colourful adventure.
Shadow Complex by Chair Entertainment and Epic Games. I remember getting this game on the Xbox 360 back in the day and immediately falling in love because there weren't really games like this in 3D on consoles. And it felt kind of like what Metroid Other M tried and failed to be. This is definitely one of the closest things to a Metroid clone on this list, but I say that with total affection because it does it all so well. It combines the Metroidvania-style game with full 3D graphics on a 2D plane, where enemies can run in from the 3D background as you travel on the 2D plane, but you also have full 360-degree aiming with slight aiming assist, creating some unique combat encounters not possible in other Metroidvania games, as well as some great depth to the landscapes. This game is also very much an example of getting drastically stronger as you go. Starting as just a regular guy with a pistol looking for his girlfriend, and ending as a totally powered-up war machine with a jetpack, missiles, gravity-defying boots, and a gun that can literally create platforms that let you go anywhere. It's a great power set, and while nothing is terribly new if you've ever played other Metroidvania games, it all works well, and there are plenty of well-hidden power-ups that can be tricky to get even with a flashlight that highlights what you need to use to get it. It also has some truly fun and challenging boss battles that feel ripped right out of a Metal Gear Solid game, and encourage you to use the terrain to your advantage rather than just your usual jump and shoot tactics. While there is voice acting and brief cinematic segments, it's pretty light on story, and you get power-ups frequently enough to keep the game moving quick, so it feels like someone ripped a classic 2D Metroidvania game and remastered it in 3D on modern devices without skipping a beat. If you can get used to some slightly wonky button mapping to juggle all the abilities you receive, this is a game that any Metroidvania fan should not miss out on. And speaking of games you should not miss out on, the marvelous Iggy is up next with one of the most beautiful and fantastic games ever made. Get ready.
Ori and the Blind Forest is a brilliant Metroidvania game because from the second you press start on that title select screen and you're shown this seemingly beautifully painted world of this once great forest, you can't help but want to explore every single nook and cranny to help the forest. That to me is a hallmark of any great Metroidvania game, the need to explore. Terrible Metroidvania games want you to just go from left to right, very little diversion. A great Metroidvania game will lead you to say, well, what's up there? Or what's down there? Well, maybe I'll come back later. Combine that with Ori's beautiful art direction, one can't help but want to explore more. You just can't stop looking at it. And the other thing that makes Ori extremely great is its story. Metroidvania games, at least the ones I've played, are not really known for their great stories. They're either non-existent or they're very cheesy. Ori tells an emotional roller coaster from start to finish. And needless to say, I teared up at the end of this game because of the story it was telling. It was able to tell the story not only through very beautiful cutscenes, but through gameplay and the world shifting. It involves the player and not simply just making you sit and watch a movie. It makes you feel those experiences at a primal level that even if you say before you start this game, well, there's no way I can connect to Ori because Ori is not human, you will connect to Ori and the other characters that appear in this game by just basic primal instinct. So that's why I think Ori and the Blind Forest is a great Metroidvania game. You want to explore everything, and its story is so beautiful and so crushing that you're not going to want to stop.
Axiom Verge by Thomas Happ Games. After hyping up Ori so much, you'd probably assume it should have been number one, but no. This game is an absolute masterpiece, and in a lot of ways is the best Metroid game that Nintendo never made. It has a uniquely creepy yet simplistic art style that creates the ambiance of the game so well. Combine that with the amazing music that sounds ripped right out of the Best of Metroid Prime soundtrack, and you're hit with an instant classic even just in the first few hours of the game. But the deeper you get into it, the more it hooks you. especially as a simple yet cerebral story kicks in slowly throughout the game, leading into a midpoint that will blow your mind on first playthrough, and I wouldn't dream of spoiling it for you here. While there are still plenty of upgrades in this game, they're not as much of a focus as in other Metroidvania games. There's the basics, such as suit upgrades, a grappling hook, and the coolest replacement for the morph ball that any game has ever implemented. But whereas the upgrades aren't terribly inventive and just fill the usual exploration roles, there are a ton of different weapons in the game, and each of these weapons has drastically different combat implications. From the close range options, to the auto-aiming but more narrow-scoped, to the slower moving but spread shot. And the extremely difficult and screen-spanning bosses in this game will put your skills to the test as you find the best weapon for each situation. There's also a much larger focus on optional power-ups, such as health and attack boosts, that are absolutely crucial to staying alive in the endgame. So there's still plenty of reason to explore every inch of the world using every ability in your arsenal, as the game hides its secrets extremely well. Almost unfairly so. The game is never unfairly difficult though, and while there were moments in it that made me briefly rage quit or even legitimately scared me a few times, I always wanted to keep going on through the moments of difficulty, scares, or ample times I got lost. The reason this game is number one is because I think, even on a list that could include Metroid or Castlevania games, this game is the only one that would still be on that list. And that makes it extremely special. And hey, it's on the Switch now, so all the people that complained about Samus Returns being stuck on 3DS can just play this game instead. You're welcome. Whew. That was a lot of great games, huh? Glad I only had to do half the work this time. I do have to give the biggest thanks to my friends that contributed to this list, though. So thank you to Kovic, Nero the Hero, the Vidiot Gamer, Elite Trainer Hugo, and Marvelous Iggy for making this list more diverse than it would have been otherwise, because I didn't actually get to play half of these games. Plus, like I said, now the audience won't blame just me for how wrong this list is, so thanks for being my scapegoats, suckers. But seriously, as always, we need you viewers to let us know how this list is. Is it the definitive list of the best Metroidvania games? Or is there something we missed? Or are there any games you love that I haven't even heard of? Please let me know. I can never get enough Metroidvania games. They're just the best. Anyway, I'm gonna stop saying Metroidvania now. So until next time, have fun.